Analyst Javed Rana is joining us now from the Pakistani capital to discuss the first anniversary since the Israeli incursion into Gaza has started. Good to see you, Javed. Now, how has the conflict in Gaza reshaped the infrastructure of the region over the past year?
I think 1 year down the line, the situation has gone from bad to the worst. Before discussing your particular question, let me just recall what was the situation before October 7. In September 2023, let's look at the bigger picture that was developing, which actually led to the October 7, and then from there onwards, how situation has gone from bad to the worst. In September last year, Israeli foreign minister is on the record to have said there is 7 Muslim countries were ready to normalize ties with the apartheid state of Israel. And those 7 countries are Muslim countries, those are Arab countries, and among them also included, presumably, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and some countries in the African states. Now, in that context, the two-state solution had to be eliminated. That was the agenda of Netanyahu. So, in that context, when Israel was continuing with its aggression in the occupied West Bank, in Gaza at that point of time, there was no option left with Hamas and other jihadi groups in Gaza that they had to go for some kind of a retaliation to prevent this from happening. Had there been not a October 7th military operation by jihadi groups inside the occupied Palestinian territories controlled by Israel, I think by now most of the Muslim countries would have normalized ties with Israel, and this question of two-state solution would have gone to the drain. That was the situation. Now, down the line, Israel has followed they call it as a Dahiya doctrine. Dahiya doctrine is essentially to punish the population, to punish every stakeholder that matters in a territory which is going to be occupied, which is going to be bombarded. So they have punished Gaza by killing as many as nearly 42,000 people. 11,000 people are still under the rubbles. Nearly 100,000 people are either maimed or they have been injured. The infrastructure in Gaza has completely destroyed. There is no sewage system as we speak now, and there is no clean water in Gaza, and people are suffering from all kinds of diseases because that was what exactly was the objective, the very motive of Israel, to create very tough conditions inside Gaza to force the population to leave the territory. And I think since Egypt has not allowed Palestinians to move into the Egyptian territories, therefore people had to be there, and as a result of which we have seen such a large number of unprecedented number of casualties within such a short span of time. If we compare it with the Ukraine war, and that is more than two years and a half, and now we have seen in Gaza it's just 1 year, and the scale of the casualties and the scale of the destruction is a far bigger. But again, tolerance level by the Americans and by the West is so huge when it comes to Gaza and when it comes to the Ukraine and other wars. They are not willing to listen to anything because according to one of the Western journalists who has gone on the record, that Ukraine is not Afghanistan, Ukraine is not any Arab countries like Iraq. Ukraine is a European country. It is our blood. So that is their blood, that is dear to them. So they would invest and they will go against Russia at all cost. But when it comes to the Muslim bloods, these Arabs, other Muslim countries, they simply don't care. Now, because the public narrative internationally has gone against Israel, that is the only success that the Palestinians have got. That is why we have seen some statements coming from some of the European countries, from the Americans, that Israel should go for a ceasefire. But at the same time, they've been providing all kind of weaponry support. They've been providing all ammunitions. They are sharing all kind of intelligence. And more particularly, Americans are part and parcel of in the planning of attacks against the Palestinians. And Americans have their warships in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Arabian Sea, and they have a contingency plan to carry out attacks on Iran in the event of a bigger war. Now, from Gaza, the war has expanded to West Bank, where nearly 23 to 25 square kilometer territory has been occupied by the apartheid state. And now there have been airstrikes. In the latest airstrikes, nearly 18 people were killed in the occupied West Bank. And 800 people have been killed there. And total, I think, from 10 to 14,000 people are now under the custody of apartheid state. This is Gaza. Now, then Americans came up with the ceasefire proposals, and that was a kind of a cover where they that they basically subsided the international pressure onto the USA, and it tried to show to the world that it is doing something to bring peace in Gaza. That did not happen. Now we know that these were all tactics. The war has expanded to very effectively to the Lebanon now. It's a Lebanon border now. Now, southern part is a part and parcel of the greater Israel, and I think that has to be occupied. They are trying to make incursions there, and Beirut is being destroyed. The southern parts of Gaza is being destroyed. Now, since Iran has retaliated twice, and we have seen that now it seems that the entire region, the Middle East, is on the verge of a far bigger war. And we know at any point of time Israel can attack Iran, and that could possibly be tit for tat response, and which means there could be a full-scale war, which also means that the American could also engage themselves in carrying out attacks on Iran. So situation has gone from bad to the worst, and the killing of the Muslims, not only inside Gaza and West Bank, occupied West Bank, but also in Lebanon, it has been normalized. So dehumanizations of Muslims everywhere in the world, more particularly in the occupied Palestinian territories and also in the Lebanese territories, that has been normalized. Dehumanization of humanity has been normalized. But remember, this dehumanization is only restricted to the Muslims.
Now, what are the mental health implications for survivors in Gaza, particularly children who have been living under bombardment and siege?
Well, it is unimaginable. It's unimaginable. Look at the scenario where families after families have been eliminated. 3 generations have been eliminated. And children, every next moment, they listen only one thing: bomb blast. That is something a normal part of cycle of life in Gaza. That is something extraordinary. And with this kind of situation, obviously there is a psychological disorder among children. But remember, I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them a great patience, which many other people elsewhere in the world lack. They have shown, people in Gaza, they have shown resilience. They have not shown their weakness. I have seen videos where the youngsters, teenagers, they are saying that they will face this Israel onslaught at every cost, but they would not give in. Now, the very purpose, very motive of Israel was to basically to punish Hamas in a manner that the Gaza's population turn against Hamas and other jihadi group. has not happened. All the surveys indicate that Hamas, which was not very popular before October 7, has gained more popularity among people. Now the question is why? The reason being was that the people were already fed up with every next day airstrikes and incursions of Israel. Gaza was already blockaded by Israel. Nothing could have gone inside without the permission of Israel, except for some of the tunnels that the people in Gaza used to have. Now, I think for them, situation was very bad. They don't want this war to continue. But at the same time, they don't want to compromise at the cost of their sovereignty, which they are nurturing. They have not got that sovereignty, but that is what they believe that it is their right. This is not a 1 year's long struggle. This is a struggle which has been continuing from 1948 till now. But the question that you raise is very, very important. That now, as we speak, the 30% population of Gaza, at least, they are malnutrition. They are basically on the verge of facing a death because of starvation, and the aid is not being fully dispatched to them. Israel has been blocking all kind of these aid. All these trucks are being stopped. Only portion of the trucks are being allowed under the name of so-called security, and they are saying this aid is going to end up in the hands of the Hamas. So I think in a broader picture, what is extremely important and what really has pleasantly shocked the world that how people in Gaza are surviving. When they don't have a clean water, when they don't have any sewage system, when they don't have any home, because 70 to 80% their homes have been destroyed, where Israel used artificial intelligence to destroy all these homes in a very systematic manner to create conditions to depopulate it and take over Gaza. I think in that context, when people see all this happening outside Gaza, many people have converted to Islam because they find that the people in Gaza, they are extraordinary Muslim. They have set an example. These people are very different to the rest of the world because the kind of the resilience that they have shown, I don't see that in the recent history. That is something extraordinary. The psychological disorder would certainly are there, but at the same time, we must recognize the fact that the resilience of Palestinian is something extraordinary.
Now, why has the international community been unable to stop or intervene in what some are calling genocide in Gaza?
I think this war has essentially exposed to the extreme end, exposed to the tipping point, the institutionalized double standards and the hypocrisy of the West led by the USA. Because Americans have marketed themselves, this is the country which believes in the human rights, this is the country which believes in the freedom of expression, freedom of association, democracy. But all what we have now discovered, basically now in a more naked manner, we have discovered that all these high values are only applicable to the Western worlds. When it comes to the Muslim countries, when it comes to the world outside the Western bloc, then they don't consider the other people as equal to them. The West believes that their values are superior to the other Muslims, but at the same time, they have used the authoritarian mechanism by using the countries like Israel directly or indirectly, and it has turned out to be a very big killing machine. What we have seen during last 1 year, that the West, from Germany, French, Britain, Americans, they've all supported the apartheid state of Israel in one manner or the other. These are not only the weaponry supplies. There is also diplomatic support. They have not allowed any resolution in the UN Security Council to be passed in favor of ceasefire. We are not talking about the two-state solution here. That is something which is very terrible, because look at how many resolutions U.S. has straight away vetoed. It calls for a two-state solution when there is a resolution for the two-state solution, USA blocks it. Americans calls for a ceasefire when there is a resolution in the UN Security Council, it vetoes it. That shows their level of hypocrisy. The Americans and the Western countries come down hard on the Turkey, on other Muslim countries, lecturing them every next year about the state of the human rights in their countries. But may I ask them, don't they see Palestinian as a human being? They have tolerated the genocide. Jews were killed in the Germany. That is a Holocaust. They came up coining this terminology of Holocaust from the Greek language. And when Palestinians are being killed, that is not a Holocaust. So these are the hypocritical standards that the Western have come up with. But now the world knows about it. Israel stands exposed to the world. Israel, yes, has gained short term when it comes to the military gains. But when it comes to the international opinion, it has lost and it would lose further. Israel has created more and more enemies now in Lebanon, in occupied Palestinian territory, in the Middle East, and across the Muslim world. Now Israel will have to face more enemies at all levels. Despite the fact that the Jewish community, the Zionist network has a overwhelmingly hold over the international media. Nonetheless, the social media has beaten them up. The social media has exposed the double standards of the Western media and the Western government. And now people in the West, I think their opinion has aggressively gone against their government. And this time around, it can cost the US vice president the presidential election in November because of a very unfavorable opinion on Gaza issue when it comes to how Americans are dealing with it.
Now, in what ways has the Israeli incursion into Lebanon escalated tensions in the wider Middle East, and what are the potential risks of further regional conflict?
Well, the policy of Israel has been straight, basically to eliminate the leadership. They eliminated the top leadership of Hezbollah, and probably they have also managed to eliminate the second possible potential leadership of Hezbollah. And they have also managed to eliminate the several top military commanders of Hezbollah. But we have seen that this has not stopped Hezbollah. There are more and more missiles attack, and there are more and more rocket attacks inside the occupied Palestinian territories. And Israel now simply doesn't know how to handle Hezbollah. What it doesn't understand is that you can assassinate a leadership of an organization, of a militant organization, of a resistant group, but at the same time, you cannot eliminate an ideology. You cannot eliminate the manpower that Hezbollah has built up over the period of time. Iran is on the record to have said in 2016 that it has trained 300,000 volunteers, militants, and they are meant for what? They are meant to carry out attacks on Israel in one way or the other. And this manpower exists in Yemen, in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in parts of Pakistan where Shia community is settled. So I think we are, as we speak, we are heading now a far bigger war. We have seen that during the last 3-4 months, we have seen 2 attacks carried out by Iran, which has been in the past using Yemeni militant groups which has been using Hezbollah and other pro-Shia militant groups in Iraq and Syria. Now it seems that the war between Israel and apartheid and Iran is going from proxy war to towards direct full-scale war. With the two attacks of Iran during last 4 months, where Iran used in the first attack more than 300 drones were used. That was more symbolic. And most recently, Iran has used 180 ballistic missiles. That was more disastrous. And there was also attack on the ground by Hamas. 8 to 12 people, Israeli citizens, were killed. And as we speak, the Hezbollah has carried out attacks in Israel, and it has damaged a lot of infrastructure. So I think in a broader picture, if we see the myth of Israel being militarily and in terms of intelligence as invincible state, that myth continue to stand shattered. Israel, in a very desperate manner, that was fantastic in terms of intelligence. It was a fantastic attack by using the walkie-talkies and by using the pagers. I mean, in terms of intelligence operation, that was something which was unprecedented, though it is something which is condemnable. But at the same time, that was essentially intended to create and restore its myth of being invincible in terms of intelligence, superiority, in terms of the technological advantage it has. Because on October 7, Hamas had shattered that myth of Israel being invincible by killing more than 1,000 Israeli citizens and by freezing their all cameras on the border, and also by freezing their internet when Hamas fighters were operating inside the occupied territories now controlled by Israel.
Javed Rana, thank you for joining NewsHour, and thank you for your analysis.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.